Good evening and welcome to the Raisina Live studios. This is the last schedule of our studio discussions, and I am Mihir Sharma, a senior fellow at ORF, and I will be speaking now for the next 10 minutes or so with Mr. Mahesh Babu, who is the CEO of Mahindra Electric. And we are going to be talking essentially about the coming revolution in urban mobility in India. How are we going to be getting about our cities in the future? What do we need to change in order to make that happen? And what is it that our experience will be able to share with the world? So, Mr. Babu, could you tell us a little bit first, sort of lay the ground here for us? Is there something special about how Indians already get about, how Indian cities already operate in terms of transportation that gives us an odd advantage in this?
I think if you look at India, India is a very unique market in transportation. We are the only country who have a large two-wheelers, last mile three-wheeler connectivity, and then you have cars to a reasonable penetration, and we have multimodal transport like buses and mass rapid transport like let us say metros and things like that. So, the rate in which urbanization is happening in India has put a lot of challenges in transport need to meet the transport needs in the urban mobility. But India has this unique multimodal transport, which has a very special way if we handle. I think it will be very unique in the world how we deliver the sustainable transportation in urban space.
So, essentially we are going through two transformations at the same time. On the one hand, we are going through this enormous urbanization transformation, which is this natural process of our development. But on the other hand, we also have to deal with the green transformation, with greening our economy, with meeting our climate change promises, and keeping our cities pollution free. And what you are saying is that because we have such a complex transportation system already, there are entry points for companies such as yourself, a sector that such as you work in. So, could you give us a little bit a sense of what your plans are? How do you fit in?
See, if you look at mobility today, I think it is in a very critical point of transformation of tipping towards sustainable, as you rightly said. So, when you look at that, I think in the West and some of the developed countries, they are looking at mobility getting electrified and many more things, particularly looking at cars. But if you look at India, India needs a very unique connectivity solution. Because moving 1.3 billion people is not the same game when you plan transportation, which has been living there for 100 years. So, I would say India has a unique opportunity, because we are urbanizing now in this decade, and the sustainable commitment from humanity comes in this space. So, when you look at it, how can we look at very sustainable and also value for mobility in India? India is a very country where we have to look at how to spend energy in a very reasonable way among all people. So, India has, let us say 22 cars per 1000 penetration, but we have large two-wheeler and large three-wheeler, and with mass transport coming, I think the best way of last mile is to go by foot, but I think we have some challenges when we walk around the cities. So, we have to look at how sustainability we can move them. So, we will have to look at how to electrify the last mile and the first mile through our unique three-wheeler opportunity. How to bring electrification in fleet first, where because fleet are the vehicles which run the most, and hence they consume a lot of oil and create a lot of pollution. So, if we penetrate in fleet of four-wheelers, so you are going to reduce a lot of pollution, because those are all the vehicles which are running the most in the city. And if you electrify the last mile and the first mile through three-wheelers, and with metros and mass rapid transport, there is a huge opportunity that we will be able to make a sustainable transportation to urban mass in India. I think this is a very unique opportunity. We can go and talk in the West and say, I have something, a multimodal integrated sustainable transport with software, and the knowledge of software Indians and the developers have. I think we can play a very vital role in this space.
So, one of the things that you just said, and I think that will strike a chord among many people who are listening, and of course, it's the Raisina Dialogue also has a national security focus, so it fits in with that, is that we have to be careful about how we spend our energy, because in the end energy is something that in many cases in India we import. But in general, there are concerns that rapid electrification, I mean these are concerns not limited to your sector, these are concerns that are also expressed by some in the in the solar power sector, by people talking about the solar power sector, etc., etc., that a rapid climate proofing of India's economy can make us more indebted to foreign technology, foreign companies, and so on and so forth. Is this a real fear?
I think any new technology or any new change happens in society or in the industry, I think there will be a lot of skepticism. The reality is we have to be the first one to embrace, because we have more challenges in providing transportation to large million people. If 400 million people have to do urbanization in next 20 years, I think we have to look at responsibility. And I believe that the electrical technology or the EVs are more technologically easier than the internal combustion engines, because the IC engines have been there for 100 years and India came in late in mobility. But I believe in electric mobility, motors and softwares and connectivity, all that is the space India is already knowing some knowledge, and we are not far left behind. And if we do now, I believe India can have a very unique learning which we can carry to the world, not on just technology, but connecting all of them through mobility, and a very unique way of giving solution to the mass in the urban area.
So, that is a very interesting point, because you are saying that in many ways trying to catch up with existing powers in regular automation, in regular automotive production is hard, because it is a complex technology and one where other people have advantage. But in EVs, maybe we can the gap between us and the leaders is not so great. We have the ability to both create a market domestically and perhaps to employ people to create value domestically. But I want to actually follow up on this point that you have made about, it is not just about production, it is about the software that goes into it, and it is about how you put everything together, because again there are parallels with the solar business, where maybe you do not produce enough of the photovoltaic cells yourself, you maybe importing some of the technology. But when it comes together, in putting things together, India has the lowest cost in the world. So, in aggregation, India has always somehow produced miracles of cost. And you are suggesting that you can be part of that solution, that India can be part of that solution. Does this have implications for other countries like India? So, I am not talking necessarily about the West here, but I am talking perhaps of countries in Africa, maybe in Southeast Asia, which also have similarly multimodal methods of transport, which have similar urbanization questions.
See, I think when you look at transportation in a very dense city, this solution what we are learning can be imported to anywhere, whether developing or developed countries as well. So, we will have to look at kind of a lighthouse pilot where we do on this multimodal transport, and with connectivity and software, and with a very sustainable way of moving people. I think that is a very good opportunity, not only for India, as rightly said, get into any country, developing and developed country. This model is being not piloted much, because everywhere if you look at ride sharing or car sharing, everything is talked about cars. Only in India you have 3-wheelers in Ola, Uber platforms, and many more other multi vehicles. Now we are talking about 2-wheelers in it, and hence there is always a learning from India on transportation, but are we using it to leverage is the question. And I believe that in EVs and sustainable transportation there is an opportunity we can leverage the learning.
That would normally be a good space to end, but I can't resist asking. You are asking, you said that there is a possibility, perhaps what we need is a lighthouse pilot project. Can you think of a city in India that would be good for this?
Every city would be happy to do. I think it will be more on a tech savvy cities like Bangalore, Pune, or looking at cities where you will see multicultural people, even Gurgaon here. There are many cities which can be thought about it, but it should be open enough to try new things and many more things. For example, today we have autonomous vehicles. So, many states in the US said how they will test it. But then I recently met a Florida senator, and he said you can come and do the trial here with the insurance. So, similarly I think Indian cities are very with our smart cities initiative, I think you can integrate that with this lighthouse and then do something about it.
Wonderful. So, there is an open challenge to city administrators there. See if you are progressive, multicultural and open enough that you are willing to take this risk. Thank you very much for being with us, and I hope you have enjoyed our time here. We have enjoyed bringing Raisina Live to you very much indeed.